Namaskar. So today we will be deliberating on IKS, that is to say Indian knowledge system, its contemporary and universal relevance. Bharatiya Gyan Parampara, Harbojonin Aru Homohamoik Prahangikata. Let me first clarify two certain things. Neither am I a scholar, nor do I possess scholarship. Why then this audacity on my part? I have a sense of offering anything and everything at the lotus feet of the Supreme Divine Mother. And this sense of surrender is the sole source of my strength and audacity. And we will be discussing today's topic in the light of Sri Aurobindo. Who is Sri Aurobindo? This is the era of information technology. If you search on Google, you will definitely know about him. But let me tell a few lines about him, only few lines, because I have to cover many things on Indian knowledge system, its universal and contemporary relevance. He was Mahayogi. He is Mahayogi, because these are immortal soul. He is Mahayogi. He is Mahabiplobi, great revolutionary. He is great revolutionary. He is also a great poet, Mahakavi. And he is also hailed as Maharishi, a great sage. Mahakavi, Mahabiplobi, Maharishi, and Mahabiplobi. On his birthday, that is to say, he was born on 15th August 1872, and on his birthday, India got freedom. Rabindranath Tagore hailed him as the voice incarnation of nation soul, Sadek Atmar Bani Murti. As if he is the voice incarnation of nation soul. Nation soul means the soul of India. He is the voice incarnation of the soul of India. Sadek Atmar Bani Murti. But first let me utter two, three stanzas from the writings of great Shankardeva. Madhavdev. আজিৰ পৰা 650 বছৰ আগতেই 650 বছৰ পূৰ্বেই অসমৰ প্ৰতিজন বৈষ্ণৱ কবিয়ে আৰু আটাইতকৈ বেছি শংকৰদেৱে in their creative writing they had been uttering the name of India, glorifying India. Shankardev uttered for 43 times in his creative writing. Shankardev, Madhavdev, Aniruddhadev, Madhav Kondoli, Ananta Kondoli, Ram Saraswati, almost all the Vaishnavite saints, আজিৰ পৰা 650 বছৰ আগতেই তেওঁলোকৰ আধ্যাত্মিক সৃষ্টিৰ পাতে তেওঁলোকে ভাৰত বন্দনা গাই গৈছে। কিয় গাই গৈছিল? মই দুটা এটা উদাহৰণ দিছো। শংকৰদেৱে কৈছিল দেৱৰ বাঞ্ছনি নৰদেহাইটো, দেৱৰ বাঞ্ছনি নৰদেহাইটো পাই আছে ভাৰতত। দেৱৰ বাঞ্ছনি means even God's desire to be born in this land, India. দেৱৰ বাঞ্ছনি অৰ্থাৎ দেৱতাসকলেও বিচাৰে ভাৰতত জন্মগ্ৰহণ কৰিবলৈ। কৈছে ভাৰতত বাঞ্ছু জন্ম আমি দেৱ যত, অল দেৱতা। মাধৱ কণ্ডলীয়েতো লিখিছে ব্ৰহ্মা আদি দেৱে, কৈছে ব্ৰহ্মা আদি দেৱে ভাৰতত জন্মগ্ৰহণ কৰিব বিচাৰে, আপোনাৰ মোৰ দৰে মানুহৰ জন্ম ল'ব বিচাৰে, কিন্তু মানুহৰ জন্ম ল'ব বিচাৰি তেওঁলোকে পাৰা নাই, আপুনি মই পাৰিছোঁ। আৰু সেইবাবে কৈছে আমাৰ জনম দুৰ্লভ জনম বুলি কৈছে, ৰেয়াৰ বাৰ্থ, because we are born in this great land India, called India. বেলেগ যদি আন একো ছিগনিফিকেন্স নাই, এই যে 650 বছৰ আগত, আৰু আটাইতকৈ বেছি শংকৰদেৱে, মাধৱদেৱে কৈছে ধন্য ধন্য কলিকাল, ধন্য নৰ তনু ভাল, ধন্য ধন্য ভাৰত বৰিছে। অকল শংকৰদেৱ মাধৱদেৱ অথবা মাধৱ কণ্ডলীয়েই নহয়, শংকৰদেৱ মাধৱদেৱ কবিশেখৰ ৰত্নাকৰ কণ্ডলী, অনন্ত কণ্ডলী, ভট্টদেৱ, গোপালচৰণ মিশ্ৰ, হৰিদাস, ৰাম সৰস্বতী, ৰামচৰণ ঠাকুৰ, ভূষণ দ্বিজ, অনিৰুদ্ধদেৱ, বিষ্ণু ভাৰতী, গোপীনাথ দ্বিজ, লক্ষ্মীনাথ দ্বিজ, ৰামগোপাল, কলাপচন্দ্ৰ দ্বিজ, কেশৱচৰণ কায়স্থ, কবিশেখৰ, নৰোত্তম ঠাকৰ, শ্ৰী বিষ্ণুদেৱ, ৰামানন্দ দ্বিজ। এইবোৰ প্ৰত্যেকগৰাকীয়ে হয় কোনোবাজন প্ৰাক শংকৰী যুগৰ, নহ'লে শংকৰদেৱৰ সমসাময়িক, নহ'লে শংকৰদেৱৰ পিছৰ। প্ৰত্যেকে নিজৰ সৃষ্টিৰ পাতত ভাৰতৰ বৰ্ণনা গাই গৈছে, গ্লৰিফাইং ইণ্ডিয়া, গৰিমামণ্ডিত কৰি গৈছে ভাৰতবৰ্ষক, আটাইতকৈ বেছি শংকৰদেৱে। Can it happen without any significance? Can it happen without any relevance? একো প্ৰাসংগিকতা নাথকাকৈ, উইদাউট এনি ৰেলিভেন্স, উইদাউট এনি ছিগনিফিকেন্স, কেন ইট হেপেন? কেন ইট বি উইদাউট এনি ছিগনিফিকেন্স? মই প্ৰথমতে সেইবাবে আই ৱান্ট টু ড্ৰ ইয়ৰ এটেনশ্যন, দেয়াৰ মাষ্ট বি ছামথিং বিহাইণ্ড দিছ গ্লৰিফিকেশ্যন, দেয়াৰ মাষ্ট বি। এণ্ড হোৱাট ইজ বিহাইণ্ড ইণ্ডিয়াছ গ্লৰিফিকেশ্যন উই আৰ টু এক্সপ্ল'ৰ নাও। কাৰণ কাব্যত দেয়াৰ ইজ লিমিটেশ্যন, কাব্যত সকলো কথা ক'ব নোৱাৰে, তেনেহ'লে হোৱাট ইজ IKS? উই হেভ বিন হিয়াৰিং দিছ ফ্ৰেজ চিন্স লাষ্ট 1 decade. বিগত 1 দশকৰ পৰা আমি IKS, ইণ্ডিয়ান নলেজ ছিষ্টেম, এই ফ্ৰেজ আমি শুনি আহিছোঁ, উই হেভ বিন হিয়াৰিং। বাট হোৱাট ডাজ ইট প্ৰিচাইজলি মিন? What is IKS? And before that, perhaps you have heard another word. What is that word? The Indology. And what is the basic difference between Indology and IKS, that is to say, Indian knowledge system? What is the basic difference between these two phrases? One is Indology and the another one is Indian knowledge system. Of course, Indian knowledge system is a new phrase. Almost we have been hearing since last 1 decade. আমি বিগত 1 দশকৰ পৰা এই ভাৰতীয় জ্ঞান পৰম্পৰা কথাষাৰ শুনি আছোঁ। আৰু তাৰ আগতে কোনটো শব্দ আছিল? ভাৰত তত্ত্ব, ইণ্ডোলজি। এই দুটা শব্দৰ মাজত কিবা পাৰ্থক্য আছে নে নাই? আমি প্ৰথমতে we will try to define IKS. And then we will try to define India, because the very phrase IKS consists of 2 words, basically 3 words. One is system, that is system means discipline, we all know. But the other 2 words are important words. One is India and the other word is knowledge. Indian knowledge system, not the European knowledge system, but Indian knowledge system. We are concerned here, we are to define Indian knowledge system. So what is then India's knowledge system? One of 3 writers or 3, a book titled IKS Concept and Application written by three writers, B. Mahadevan, Binayak Rajat Bhat, Nagendra Pavna Aren. They have defined IKS in a single sentence. And this has attracted me. And in my opinion, it's a comprehensive definition on IKS. But it's a one-liner definition of IKS, Indian knowledge system. Though the very phrase can be defined by various authors in various ways, because it is an evolving subject. It is not yet fully evolved. It is an evolving subject. It is a ক্রমবিবর্তনশীল বিষয়. It is still being evolved. So it has been variously defined by various authors. But for me, the definition given by these three authors has satisfied me. And in my opinion, it's a comprehensive definition of IKS. They say IKS is a generic phrase. Generic means a classification. IKS is a generic phrase that covers practically everything about India. So what is IKS? IKS means that which practically covers everything about India. Everything about India means India's literature, India's science, India's cosmology, India's philosophy, India's knowledge, India's society, India's polity, India's history, India's sociology, India's spirituality, India's art, India's vision of education, everything related to India. Anything and everything related to India will be regarded will be covered by this generic phrase, Indian knowledge system. So IKS is a generic phrase that practically covers everything about India. But you have to answer another question. Why? If somebody asks you why covering practically everything about India should be regarded as Indian knowledge system, why? Then what would be your answer? Then you would answer. Why practically covers everything about India is IKS? Because everything related and associated with India is also associated with a knowledge. If you discuss India's sociology, a knowledge is associated with India's sociology. If you discuss India's spirituality, profoundest knowledge is associated with India's spirituality. If you discuss Indian art, knowledge is also associated with Indian art. If you discuss India's democracy, India's society, anything and everything associated with India is also associated with a knowledge. And that is why, what is IKS? IKS is a generic phrase that covers practically everything about India. Now, then, what is the ambit of IKS? The literature, culture, social practices, historical evidence, and other such knowledge assets available in all Indian language, in all Indian dialects, and in all geographical regions of India. Whether it is there in Nagaland or whether it is there in Benares. Everything will be covered by this generic phrase, Indian knowledge system. So you will, everything, anything, if you discuss anything related to India, that means you are discussing about India's knowledge system. Why? Because anything and everything associated with India is also associated with a certain kind of knowledge. When you will analyze, you will study, you will be able to understand yourself that anything and everything associated with India is also associated with a knowledge. Then the time dimension, whether the anything related to present India will be taken into consideration, or the past, or the anything relating to ancient India will be taken into consideration, or anything relating to future India will be taken into consideration. Then your answer would be knowledge assets available in India from the prehistoric time to the current day. Prehistoric time to the current day. That is to say, 22nd January 2025. So this is the time dimension. Everything from the prehistoric India to the current day. Knowledge available in all aspects of life: arts, culture, architecture, spirituality, religion, politics, society, cosmology, science, anything. So this is the time dimension, and that was the ambit of IKS. So knowledge available in all Indian language, in all Indian dialects, not only in Sanskrit, not only in Assamese, not only in Bengali, in all Indian dialects and all Indian languages, Pali, Prakrit, Marathi, anything, any language will be covered by this generic phrase called IKS. So it's a very huge task. You cannot grasp everything about Indian knowledge system within a single life, within a single period, a single span of single life period. It's not possible. At least for me, not possible. Even 5,000 births will be insufficient for me. 5,000 births. Because almost India's knowledge is infinite. It is not finite. Infinite. There's a huge, astonishing fund of integral knowledge. In art, in poetry, in literature, in spirituality, everything, anything and everything associated with India is also associated with a knowledge. That is why anything covering India, anything practically covering India is covered within the ambit of this generic phrase, Indian knowledge system. But then, what is Indology? What is Indology? Because I have already said that this IKS is a 10 years baby only. It's a very new phrase we have been hearing since 2014. Prior to that, another word was very much popular among the academia. And what was that word? It was the Indology. Indology. Then what is Indology? What is its basic difference with IKS? So Indology, also known as South Asian Studies. Also known as South Asian Studies. So Indology is basically South Asian Studies. Though it is called Indology, Bharat Tattva, still basically it is South Asian Studies. Is the academic study. It's only academic study, limited to academics only. Academic study of what? Of the history and cultures and language and literatures of Indian subcontinent. Academic study and confining to history, culture, language and literature. But IKS covers practically everything about India. everything about India, and as such is a subset of Asian studies. So subset means an element of Asian studies. Indian subcontinent means South Asian studies. So Indology is an element of South Asian studies, or element of studies relating to Indian subcontinent. Indian subcontinent means this Southeast Asia. So this is the difference between IKS is a very broader term, because it covers practically everything about India. Nothing is left out. Nothing is left out. So in this phrase, we have three words. We have three words. What are those three words? One is Indian, one is knowledge, and the other one is system. System, you may call it discipline, tradition, discipline. But what is India? The idea of India itself is a huge subject. Idea of India, what is India? India is not an art alone. Bharat kebol etukura bhumi nahoy. Then what is India? If I need to explain what is India comprehensively, I will need at least 50 sessions. There are different dimensions: political dimension, spiritual dimension, cultural dimensions. But here we will confine, or I will be attracting your attention towards a specific issue. So Sri Aurobindo, in his book, The Foundations of Indian Culture, he asks a question: what was this ancient spirit and characteristic soul of India? What is this characteristic soul of India? Is ami Bharat boli koisu, that India is a soul. What is this characteristic soul? And he answers that this characteristic soul of India is consisting of three powers. What are those three powers? Three powers. So if you want to study about IKS, if you study about India, you have to study about these three powers of India. And what are those three powers? First is, Sri Aurobindo says, spirituality. But what is spirituality? It's another huge area. I will not explain today. Just I am mentioning, just I am suggesting. Out of three powers with which India, the soul of India is consisting of. So there are three elements of Indian soul. Indian soul means three powers. First power is spirituality. Sri Aurobindo says, spirituality is indeed the master key of the Indian mind. Master key. Through spirituality, you can unlock anything about India. It is the master key. Spirituality is the master key. Not the dharma, not the religion. The word I am using is spirituality, not dharma. But India is also a land of dharma. India is also a land of religion. But essentially, India is a land of spirituality. But what is the difference between spirituality, dharma, and religion in Indian light, in the profounder Indian sense of the words? That is another knowledge associated with India. Today we will not be discussing. Just let us have an idea of the Indian soul. Indian soul is consisting of three powers. First power is spirituality. But spirituality is not dharma, spirituality is not religion. There are fundamental and radical differences between religion, dharma, and adhyatma. Spirituality is adhyatma. Then the second power is Sri Aurobindo says, vitality. After spirituality, it was vitality. Vitality means pran shakti, creativity, creative power, will power, creative power, will power. So India was never devoid of this creative power. So he says that, but this was not and could not be her whole mentality, her entire spirit. This means spirituality. Spirituality was not and could not be her whole mentality, her whole spirit, Spiritually, he then says, when we look at the past of India, what strikes us next is her stupendous vitality. And what is this stupendous vitality? Her inexhaustible power of life and joy of life. Inexhaustible power, অর্থাৎ যেটো শেষ নহয়, জীৱনৰ অফুৰন্ত শক্তি আৰু জীৱনৰ আনন্দ. Her inexhaustible power of life and joy of life, her almost unimaginably prolific creativeness. Two adjectives are here. Unimaginably. So India's creativeness was, you cannot imagine what was the magnitude of India's creativeness. I will not give any account of that massive creativeness today. I am just mentioning that this was the second power of India. Unimaginably prolific creativeness. Not only prolific creativeness, unimaginably prolific creativeness. So this was the second power. And what was the third power? The third power, Sri Aurobindo says, but this supreme spirituality and the prolific abundance of the energy and joy of life and creation. Joy of life, abundance of energy, creativeness, all these are taken together called vitality. But this supreme spirituality and this prolific abundance of the energy and joy of life and creation do not make all that the spirit of India has been in its past. There is a third power. There is a third power. And what is the third power? For the third power of the ancient Indian spirit was a strong intellectuality. If you want to study about India, if you want to study about Indian knowledge system, you have to study India's spirituality. You have to study India's power of intellectuality. You have to study India's power of vitality. And what is the meaning of vitality? Joy of life, creativeness, abundance of energy, unimaginably prolific creativeness. So, just to give you an idea what are the elements of soul of India, it is consisting of three powers: spirituality, vitality, and intellectuality. And does an ingrained and dominant spirituality, an inexhaustible vital creativeness and gust of life. So these are the two main power. One is dominant spirituality. Dominant spirituality মানে একেবারে ভারতৰ আপোন মজ্জাগত সহজাত আধ্যাত্মিকতা. Dominant spirituality. Spirituality was dominating everything. And the second was inexhaustible vital creativeness. Inexhaustible means যেটো শেষ নহয়, অফুৰন্ত. Inexhaustible vital creativeness and gust of life. জীৱনৰ প্ৰাণ শক্তি. This is what is called vitality. আৰু এই দুটাৰ মাজত মেডিয়েট কোনে কৰিছিল, মধ্যস্থতা কোনে কৰিছিল? কৈছে mediating between them a powerful, penetrating and scrupulous intelligence, that is to say intellectuality. So at the top, it was spirituality. At the bottom, it was vitality. And between these two, mediated by a strong intellectuality. Because it thus created the harmony of the ancient Indian culture. So these are our three powers: spirituality, vitality, and intellectuality. And then the knowledge, it will be a it will be a very complicated area. I need a full session, so I do not want to discuss today about knowledge because it's a huge area. What is knowledge in the profounder Indian sense of the word jnana? It's a altogether, there is a specific meaning, but this meaning is related to these three powers: intellectuality, vitality, and spirituality. Also, we have three words. One word is knowledge, one word is information, another word is wisdom. There must be some difference between these three words. And knowledge in the ordinary sense, and knowledge as well as knowledge in the profounder Indian sense of the word jnana. So today I will not be discussing about knowledge, but just only one thing I want to place before you, that the profounder sense of the word knowledge, profoundest sense of the word knowledge is related to India's spirituality, is related to India's intellectuality, is related to India's vitality. That much we'll do now. So because without a comprehensive idea of what spirituality is, you cannot grasp the profounder meaning of knowledge in the profounder Indian sense of the word jnana. So that is why I am not discussing today. But just I am giving you a hint that the profoundest Indian sense of knowledge is related to spirituality, is related to intellectuality, related to India's vitality. So now let me ponder about relevance. Relevance means prasangikata. Relevance means necessity. What is contemporary relevance and what is universal relevance? And by universal relevance, what I want to mean? I want to mean the relevance of Indian knowledge system for the whole world. And by contemporary relevance, I want to mean relevance for us. For us means for us Indians. Because the relevance can be discussed from two perspectives. One from the perspective of the whole world, and one from the perspective one from our point of view. Our point of view means from India's point of view. And another is from the point of view of the whole world. Is Indian knowledge system necessary for the whole world? Or only we need it? And why we are discussing it in the context of Western knowledge system, European knowledge system. Because present world is being dominated by Western knowledge system. Whether it is in science, whether it is in literature, whether it is in art, whether it is in chemistry, whether it is in physics, whether it is in cosmology, whole civilization, whole human civilization at present is dominated by Western knowledge system, European knowledge system. We want to change it. We want to change it. Why? There must be reason. There must be reason. That reason is nothing but relevance from our point of view. And Western knowledge system so far could not solve any human problems. পাশ্চাত্যৰ জ্ঞান পৰম্পৰাই মানৱ জাতিৰ কিবা সমস্যাৰ সমাধান কৰিব পাৰিছে নেকি এতিয়ালৈ? কি সমস্যাৰ সমাধান কৰিব পাৰিছে? আমাক কেৱল কিছুমান সুবিধা দিবলৈ পাৰিছে। এই যে মানুহৰ মাজত মই কম সেই বিষয়ে কম। আৰু by Western knowledge system we mean scientific knowledge. We challenge it. India has challenged that you don't have the power. European knowledge system has no power to solve human problem. But we, India, can solve all human problems. We have the capacity. We demand, we claim. But whether it is our true demand, true claim or false demand, you have to enter yourself into the domain of Indian knowledge system. Then only you could understand. So first let me discuss from our point of view why we want to impose Indian knowledge system on the Indians. Why? Because India's elites are, educated Indians are alienated from their culture. Not the uneducated Indians. We, the educated Indians, are alienated from Indian culture. This is a distinctive characteristics of educated Indians. Educated India does not have any regard for their own culture, but not the uneducated Indians. Uneducated, and that is why University Grants Commission is trying to impose Indian knowledge system on educated Indians. They are not proposing to popularize Indian knowledge system among the uneducated Indians. বিশ্ববিদ্যালয় অনুদান আয়োগে ভাৰতীয় জ্ঞান পৰম্পৰা আমাৰ গাঁৱত প্ৰচাৰ কৰিবলৈ চেষ্টা কৰা নাই। ক'ত প্ৰচাৰ কৰিবলৈ যত্ন কৰিছে? বিশ্ববিদ্যালয়ত। Why? Because now the nation is aware that educated Indian, aristocratic Indians, elite Indians are alienated from their own culture. And by alienating ourselves, what we are doing? We are hypnotized. We are hypnotized by the glamour of European culture. We are hypnotized by the glamour of European culture. We are hypnotized by the glamour of Harvard University. We are hypnotized by the glamour of Cambridge University. Why? In other countries, educated countrymen are not alienated from their own culture. But in India, educated Indians are alienated from their own culture. Why? Let us analyze. Let us analyze. Let us analyze. Let us analyze. One of the post-Indian sages, Ram Swarup, in his book Cultural Self-Alienation Among Hindus and Some Remedial Measures, where he writes that when two cultures meet on unequal military terms, he has given the example, as the Hindu culture met the West and earlier met Islam. Because we fought against these two powers, Islamic power and the Western power represented by British. And we lost. Ram Swarup says, it gives rise, and earlier met Islam, it gives rise to grave problems of self-identity for the defeated party. And Who are the defeated party? We. We lost to Islam. We lost to British. We lost to British. We lost to Islam. And when India finally realized that she had lost in the military as well as diplomatic contest. In diplomatic contest, we lost to British. In military contest, we lost to Islam. We lost to Islam. And that the British were supreme. Then she was overwhelmed. Means India was overwhelmed. India was overwhelmed means the educated Indians were overwhelmed, not the uneducated Indians. Educated Indians was overwhelmed and filled with a deep sense of inferiority because we lost. কারণ আমি পরাজিত হইছিলো। আমি আগতে ইছলামৰ লগত পৰাজিত হৈছো, তাৰ পিছত ব্ৰিটিছসকলৰ সৈতে পৰাজিত হৈছো। আমি পৰাজিত জাতি, আমি হীনমন্যতাত ভুগিলো, আমি অভিভূত হৈ পৰিলো। কাৰ প্ৰতি? যে ব্ৰিটিছসকল তেওঁলোক প্ৰভু, তেওঁলোকে আমাক জয় কৰিছে, আমাক পৰাজিত কৰিছে, আমাৰ শিক্ষিত শ্ৰেণী সন্মোহিত হৈ গ'ল। আৰু কৈছে তেতিয়া কি হয়? যেতিয়া এটা জাতি যেতিয়া পৰাজিত হয় তেতিয়া কি হয়? তেতিয়া কৈছে under such circumstances as it usually happens. কি হ'ব পাৰে তেতিয়া? যেতিয়া আমি জাতিগতভাৱে যদি এটা শক্তিৰ ওচৰত যদি পৰাজয় স্বীকাৰ কৰিব লগা হয় তেতিয়া what happens? ৰামস্বৰূপে লিখিছে other non-military forces came into play. Non-military forces came into play. And what are those non-military forces? Because different people sought psychological rehabilitation in different ways. Psychological rehabilitation. We were defeated. Because some retired into their cell and became apathetic. Because কিছুমান retired into their cell. হামুকে যেনেকে খোলাৰ ভিতৰত সোমাই যায়, আমাৰ কিছুমান শিক্ষিত শ্ৰেণী তেওঁলোকে ঘৰৰ ভিতৰত সোমাই গ'ল। And became apathetic, উদাসীন, যি হৈ আছে হৈ থাকক। ইষ্ট ইণ্ডিয়া কোম্পানী আমাৰ দেশ লৈ লৈছে, লৈ লওক। আমি পৰাধীন জাতি, কি হলো পৰাধীন? আমি খাব পালেই হ'ল। Became apathetic. কৈছে কিন্তু মেজৰিটি, বেছিভাগে কি কৰিলে? A majority made the situation by self-repudiation. Self-repudiation. Self-repudiation মানে নিজক অস্বীকাৰ কৰিলে, ৰেপুডিয়েট কৰিলে, যে I will not recognize myself, my identity. Self-repudiation and wholesale imitation. Not retail imitation, wholesale imitation. Wholesale imitation of what? Wholesale imitation of victors. And who were the victors? British were the victors. Wholesale imitation. And what they did? They disowned their nationhood. We are not Indian because we are a defeated nation. They disowned their nationhood and their culture and adopted the ways and attitudes of the victors. And adopted the ways and attitudes of the victors whom they regarded as their superiors. And they saved their self-respect through self-alienation. গতিকে আমি আত্মসন্মান কেনেকৈ ৰক্ষা কৰিলোঁ? আমি আমাৰ নিজৰ সংস্কৃতিৰ পৰা আঁতৰি আহিলোঁ। আমি আমাৰ নিজৰ ৰাষ্ট্ৰীয়তাক অস্বীকাৰ কৰিলোঁ। কাৰণ ব্ৰিটিছসকল জয়ী হৈছে, তেওঁলোক প্ৰভু, তেওঁলোক শক্তিশালী। আৰু কৈছে this self-alienation was an important component of the intellectual ferment that followed the British conquest of India. কৈছে এই যিটো যে আমি যে বিচ্ছিন্ন হৈছিলোঁ, আমাৰ নিজৰ সংস্কৃতিৰ পৰা যে বিচ্ছিন্ন হৈ পৰিছিলোঁ, স্বাধীনতাৰ পিছত বা এই যে ব্ৰিটিছে আমাক পৰাজিত কৰাৰ পিছত যিটো দেশত যিটো এটা মানসিক পৰিস্থিতি, ইণ্টেলেকচুৱেল ফাৰ্মেণ্ট অৰ্থাৎ মানসিক যিটো আন্দোলন বা ইয়াত যিটো আলোড়ন গঢ়ি উঠিছিলে, তাৰ এটা গুৰুত্বপূৰ্ণ অংগ আছিল। কোনটো? দিছ কালচাৰেল চেল্ফ এলিনেশ্যন। Whose cultural self-alienation? Cultural self-alienation not of the uneducated Indians, but the elite Indians, educated Indians. It was very pervasive. It was very pervasive and attacked all strata of the society, which সমাজৰ প্ৰতিটো অংশকে স্পৰ্শ কৰিছিল, but particularly the intellectual elites, যিসকল অভিজাত শ্ৰেণী আছিল, শিক্ষিত শ্ৰেণী আছিল, তেওঁলোকক আটাইতকৈ বেছি স্পৰ্শ কৰিছিল। কাৰণ অশিক্ষিত সমাজে জানাই নাছিল কোনে আমাক পৰাজিত কৰিছে, শিক্ষিত শ্ৰেণীয়ে জানিছিল। কৈছে even people who eventually came to fight the British politically surrendered to them culturally. কিছুমান এনেকুৱা মানুহ আছিল তেওঁলোকে ব্ৰিটিছৰ বিৰুদ্ধে যুদ্ধ কৰিছে, ব্ৰিটিছৰ বিৰুদ্ধে ৰাজনৈতিকভাৱে যুদ্ধ কৰিছে, কিন্তু কালচাৰেলি ব্ৰিটিছৰ ওচৰত নিজক সমৰ্পণ কৰি দিছে, সাৰেণ্ডাৰ কৰি দিছে। আৰু কৈছে this surrender gave rise to what may be called the politics of self-alienation, and fed by many sources it became increasingly more powerful. Today it seemed to dominate. কৈছে এই যিটো আমি যে নিজক যে আমি আঁতৰি আহিলোঁ নিজৰ সংস্কৃতিৰ পৰা, আৰু এই নিজক আমি যে সংস্কৃতিৰ পৰা আঁতৰি অহাৰ যিটো প্ৰক্ৰিয়া, এই প্ৰক্ৰিয়াটোক বিভিন্ন উৎসই তাক উৎসাহিত কৰিছে, আৰু আমি নাজানো কিন্তু। আৰু কৈছে বৰ্তমান সময়ত কৈছে টুডে ইট চিমছ টু ডমিনেট। এই যে কালচাৰেল সেলফ এলিনেশ্যন ইজ ডমিনেটিং আৱাৰ সাইকোলজি, এণ্ড ইউনিভাৰ্চিটি গ্ৰাণ্টছ কমিশ্যন ইজ এৱেৰ অফ this psychology of educated Indians, that we are more attracted by the Harvard University. We want to live in America because America for us is a paradise. ইয়াত ভাৰতীয় শিক্ষিত মানুহ, আমাৰ অশিক্ষিত মানুহে জানো আমেৰিকাত থাকিব বিচাৰে? আমেৰিকাক স্বৰ্গ বুলি কোনে ভাবে? শিক্ষিত মানুহে ভাবে, আৰু সেইভাবে ইয়াতে পঢ়ি শুনি যেতিয়া যায় আৰু ঘূৰি নাহে। কিয় হৈছে এইটো? বিকজ অফ দিছ কালচাৰেল সেলফ এলিনেশ্যন। আমাৰ নিজৰ দেশৰ প্ৰতি কোনো ভক্তিও নাই। কেনেকৈ ভক্তি থাকিব? উই আৰ ছেপাৰেটেড ফ্ৰম ইণ্ডিয়ান নলেজ ছিষ্টেম। উই ডু নট নো হোৱাট ইজ ইণ্ডিয়া। উই নো ডেট দে ৱেৰ সুপ্ৰিম বিকজ দে ডিফিটেড আছ। তেওঁলোকে আমাক পৰাজিত কৰিছিল এদিন, তেওঁলোকে আমাক পৰাজিত কৰিছিল। মই এইটো খুব সংক্ষিপ্তভাৱে এটা ক'বলৈ গৈছোঁ। আৰু দ্বিতীয়তে মই এটা খুব কঠিন প্ৰশ্ন, যিহেতু মই দুটা ফালৰ পৰা কম বুলি মই ভাবিছোঁ। কিয় আমি ইণ্ডিয়াই ভাবিছোঁ যে আমি ভাৰতীয় জ্ঞান পৰম্পৰাৰ জৰিয়তে আমি পৃথিৱীৰ সমস্যাৰ সমাধান কৰিম বুলি আমি কিয় ভাবিছোঁ? যে আমাক বিজ্ঞানে কি এতিয়ালৈ দিব পৰা নাই, আমাক পশ্চিমৰ সংস্কৃতিয়ে আমাক এতিয়ালৈ কি দিব পৰা নাই। কৈছে আমাক এতিয়ালৈ এটা জীৱনৰ লক্ষ্য আমাক পশ্চিমৰ নলেজে এতিয়ালৈ আমাক দিব পৰা নাই। আমাক পশ্চিমৰ কৈছে মানুহে এই যে আমি পৃথিৱীত জন্মগ্ৰহণ কৰিছোঁ, ইয়াত এই যে তোমালোক পঢ়িব আহিছা, আমি প্ৰত্যেকে এটা জীৱনৰ লক্ষ্য সন্ধান কৰিছোঁ। আৰু মানৱ জাতিয়ে আমাক এটা জীৱনৰ লক্ষ্য লাগে। কৈছে এই গোল অফ লাইফ, আমাক এটা গোল অফ লাইফ লাগে, জীৱনৰ লক্ষ্য লাগে। হোৱাই আই এম অন দিছ ৱৰ্ল্ড, হোৱাই আই এম এক্সিষ্টিং, হোৱাই আই এম লিভিং। Am I living only to die? মই মৰিবৰ বাবে মই জীয়াই আছোঁ নেকি নে জীৱন মানে কেৱল মাত্ৰ জন্ম বৃদ্ধি আৰু মৃত্যু বাৰ্থ গ্ৰোথ এণ্ড ডেথ এণ্ড ডাইং কৈছে এই গোল অফ লাইফ আমাক ৱেষ্টাৰ্ণ নলেজ ছিষ্টেমে দিব পৰা নাই ৱেষ্টাৰ্ণ নলেজ ছিষ্টেম মানে কোনে ইউৰোপিয়ান নলেজ ছিষ্টেম আমাক দিব পৰা নাই তাৰপিছত আমি কি বিচাৰিছোঁ এ প্ৰেক্টিছ অফ পাৰফেকশ্যন আমি নিজক পাৰফেক্ট কৰাৰ বাবে আমাক এটা প্ৰেক্টিছ এটা বিচাৰিছোঁ আমি এ প্ৰেক্টিছ অফ পাৰফেকশ্যন আৰু কেনেকুৱা প্ৰেক্টিছ যিটো প্ৰেক্টিছ ৰেচনেল হয় যুক্তিসংগতও হ'ব লাগিব আৰু ইয়েত কৈছে কি যে বাইণ্ডিং ল অফ কণ্ডাক্ট আমি এই যে যিবোৰ ধৰ্ম মানেই হ'ল ল অফ কণ্ডাক্ট কিন্তু আমাক সেই কণ্ডাক্টটো কেনেকুৱা লাগিব ৰেচনেলো হ'ব লাগিব এজ ৱেল এজ বাইণ্ডিঙো হ'ব লাগিব কাৰণ ইৰেচনেল কণ্ডাক্ট আমি উই উইল নট প্ৰেক্টিছ এই তিনিটা বস্তু এ গোল অফ লাইফ এ প্ৰেক্টিছ অফ পাৰফেকশ্যন এ ৰেচনেল ইয়েট বাইণ্ডিং ল অফ কণ্ডাক্ট এই তিনিটাৰ এটাও বিজ্ঞানে আমাক দিব পৰা নাই পাৰিছে নেকি দিব বিজ্ঞানে আমাক এতিয়ালৈ আৰু বৈজ্ঞানিক জ্ঞান মানেই ইউৰোপীয় জ্ঞান প্ৰণালী ৱেষ্টাৰ্ণ নলেজ ছিষ্টেম আমাক দিব পাৰিছে নেকি এটা জীৱনৰ লক্ষ্য পাৰা নাই দিব এ প্ৰেক্টিছ অফ পাৰফেকশ্যন মানে কি আমাৰ প্ৰত্যেকৰে খং উঠে কিয় খং উঠে মই খং উঠাটো পাৰফেক্ট কৰিব লাগিব নাই আমাক বিজ্ঞানে জানো কিবা টুপাই দিব পাৰিছে কেনেকৈ মই মোৰ খংটো কমাম মোৰ লোভ কেনেকৈ কমাম মোৰ হেট্ৰেট কেনেকৈ কমাম বিবেকানন্দই কৈছে এডুকেশ্যন মানে কি নট দি একুৱাৰিং অফ ইনফৰমেশ্যন বিবেকানন্দই কৈছে এডুকেশ্যন ইজ দি মেনিফেষ্টেশ্যন অফ পাৰফেকশ্যন অলৰেডি ইন মেন উই আৰ বৰ্ণ উইথ পাৰফেকশ্যন that needs to be manifested. But science has not been able to provide us a practice of perfection. আমাক দিব পাৰিছে জানো তাৰপিছত 3 নম্বৰ আমাক বিজ্ঞানে এটা ৰেচনেল যুক্তিসংগত অথচ বাধ্যতামূলক এটা জীৱনৰ আচৰণ আমাক জানো দিব পাৰিছে মহাৰিষি শ্ৰী তৰবিন্দই কৈছে আমি যিমান সামাজিকতা কৰিছোঁ যিমান ৰাজনীতি সমাজ আমি সংস্কৃতি তাৰ মূল উদ্দেশ্য হ'ল মানুহে কৈছে দিজ আৰ মেনছ কণ্টিনিউৱেল কুৱেষ্ট এই তিনিটা বস্তুৱেই আমি মানুহে বিচাৰিছোঁ এই যে মানুহে প্ৰজন্মৰ পিছত প্ৰজন্ম পৃথিৱীত জন্ম লৈছে আহি আছে আমাক এটা সুস্থিৰ জীৱনৰ লক্ষ্য লাগে এ প্ৰেক্টিছ অফ পাৰফেকশ্যন লাগে আৰু কি লাগে এটা আমাক ৰেচনেল এজ ৱেল এজ বাইণ্ডিং ল অফ কণ্ডাক্ট লাগে আমি জীৱনটো কেনেকৈ নিজক পৰিচালিত কৰিম ইটো ধৰ্মই কৈছে অমুকটো মানা সেইটো ধৰ্মই কৈছে নহয় এজ এ দিছ ইজ নট লজিকেল কোনোবাই কৈছে দিছ ইজ লজিকেল দিছ ইজ নট লজিকেল বাট উই আৰ চাৰ্চিং ফৰ এ ৰেচনেল ল অফ কণ্ডাক্ট উই আৰ চাৰ্চিং আৰু সেইটো ৰেচনেল লাগিব হ'ব বাট ইয়েট বাইণ্ডিঙো লাগিব হ'ব আৰু এই তিনিটা বস্তুৱেই আসলতে মানৱ জাতিয়ে বিচাৰি আছে আৰু এই তিনিটাৰ ভিতৰত এটাও কিন্তু বিজ্ঞানে আমাক দিব পৰা নাই তেলে প্ৰশ্ন হ'ল ভাৰতীয় জ্ঞান পৰম্পৰাই দিব পাৰিছে নেকি ইউ মে একচেপ্ট ইট ইউ মে থ্ৰ' ইট এৱে কিন্তু ভাৰতীয় জ্ঞান পৰম্পৰাই এই তিনিটা বস্তুৰেই উত্তৰ দিছে মানৱ জাতিক But world has failed. Modern knowledge system has failed. Scientific knowledge system has failed to give answer. But India has given the answer. Because what science could not provide, India offers. India offers mean Indian knowledge system offers. Because of society, as of all, what science could not provide, India offers. ইয়াত এটা শব্দ কৈছে তেলে জীৱনৰ লক্ষ্য কি ইউ মে একচেপ্ট ইট ইউ মে থ্ৰ' ইট এৱে বাট India has at least offered a goal of life. And what is the goal of life? Not to become vice chancellor, not to become an engineer, not to become a doctor, not to become an IS officer. Then what should be my goal of life? These are all ways. Becoming vice chancellor, becoming doctor, becoming engineer, becoming professor. These are all ways, not the goal. These are ways to reach the goal. But then what is the goal? You may accept it, you may throw it out. India says, divine is our goal. Brahman is our goal. Brahman is our goal. You may accept it, you may not accept it. When you will deeply involve with the Indian knowledge system, you will come to know what is the meaning of goal of life as the Brahman, Brahman as the goal of life. At least India has offered, but science could not, European knowledge could not. And then the means of perfection. Yoga for the means of perfection. Yoga is nothing but a means of perfection. Yoga is not a therapeutic science. Yoga is not about asanas and pranayamas. You are shocked. You are shocked. Asana and pranayamas are two ways of thousand ways. Asana aru pranayam, ajikali amak jitu yoga sajya, they are not yoga sajya, they are asana sarya. গীতাত 6 নম্বৰ অধ্যায়ত 46 নম্বৰ শ্লোকত শ্ৰীকৃষ্ণই অৰ্জুনক কৈছে যোগী ভৱ অৰ্জুন হে অৰ্জুন ইউ বিকাম এ যোগী হোৱাই যোগী কিন্তু গীতাত কতো আসনৰ কথা কোৱা নাই কতো প্ৰাণায়ামৰ কথা কোৱা নাই গীতাৰ এমং দি 700 শ্লোকাস কিয় কৈছে যে গীতাত কৈছে গীতাই শ্ৰীকৃষ্ণই অৰ্জুন ইউ বিকাম এ যোগী হোৱাই কৈছে যোগী ইজ গ্ৰেটাৰ দেন কৰ্মী কৈছে যোগী ইজ গ্ৰেটাৰ দেন ধ্যানী যোগী ইজ গ্ৰেটাৰ দেন জ্ঞানী বাট হিয়াৰ we have made yoga a gymnasium. We have made yoga a therapeutic science only. Yes, yoga has the capacity to cure your diseases. Not the yoga per se. It is the asana and pranayama can be used for therapeutic purpose. Then it is not called yoga. Then it is called Ayurveda. When asanas and pranayamas are used for therapeutic purpose, it is not called yogic process. Then it is therapeutic science. And India's therapeutic science is Ayurveda. Ayurveda uses asana and pranayama for therapeutic purposes. Without asana and pranayama, I can be a yogi. In India, there are several yogas. There are Gyan yoga, there are Bhakti yoga, there are Karma yoga. Without resorting to asana and pranayam at all. So, what is yoga? Yoga is a methodized effort towards perfection, towards perfection. And what is the process? By manifesting the latent powers within my being. And its highest aim is unity. Unity. Yoga means to unite. To unite with what? To unite with this Brahman. But to unite with Brahman, you have to first unite with your family. You have to first unite with your society. You have to unite with your nation. You have to unite with the whole universe. Like Indian says, you have to be able to utter Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. So yoga is a methodized effort towards perfection by manifesting the powers within. And its highest aim is unity. So asana and pranayamas are associated with hatha yoga. There are broadly 5 kinds of yogas. The oldest and ancient yoga form is called Hatha Yoga. And in that yoga, asana and pranayamas are the ways. After that, what evolved? It is the Ashtanga Yoga of Patanjali. In Ashtanga Yoga, 75%, the ways of Ashtanga Yoga, up to 75% is not asana and pranayama. It is other things. Yama, niyama, jama, niyama, dhyan, dharana, pratyahara, samadhi, etc. Asana and pranayama, only 2 elements. Among Ashtanga means 8. And in Jnana Yoga, there is no scope of asana and pranayama. In Bhakti Yoga, there is no role of asana and pranayama. In Karma Yoga, there is no role of asana and pranayama. So, when yoga is used for therapeutic purpose, when yoga is used for therapeutic purpose, then it is called Ayurveda. When asana and pranayama is used for therapeutic purpose, it is called therapeutic science. It is Ayurveda. When it is used for keeping our health, then it is gymnasium. But when asana and pranayams are resorted to for perfection, for uniting myself with the Brahman, then only it will be called yogic science. Yoga is an inward process which cannot be seen by others. Whether I am yogi or not, you cannot see it through your physical eye. But you can see that very man is doing, or that very man is practicing asana. So asana and pranayama are only 2 ways. Yoga is a life. Yoga is the very heart of India's spirituality. So, yoga is the answer. It is a practice of perfection India has offered. There are Gyan Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Karma Yoga. Hatha Yoga is not the only yoga of India. It is the oldest and ancient yoga. Oldest and ancient. But when asana and pranayama are used for perfection, used as a process of perfection, used as a process of uniting yourself with the Brahman, then only it will be called yoga. Otherwise, it will just a gymnasium. মই সাহসৰ সৈতে কৈছো আমি 21 জুনত যিবোৰ ভাৰতবৰ্ষত কৰো, these are only the play of asanas. These are only the exhibition of asanas, not yoga. যোগা যেটো এই যে যোগৰ যেটো শ্ৰীকৃষ্ণই গীতাত 6 নম্বৰ অধ্যায়ৰ 46 নম্বৰ শ্লোকত কৈছে যোগী ভবাৰ্জুন যে ধ্যানিতকৌ যোগী শ্ৰেষ্ঠ, জ্ঞানিতকৌ যোগী শ্ৰেষ্ঠ, কৰ্মিতকৌ যোগী শ্ৰেষ্ঠ। আৰু সেইভাবে কৃষ্ণই অৰ্জুনক কৈছে don't become anything else, become only yogi. This is the sense of yoga. And here Sri Aurobindo says yoga for the means of perfection. And the third answer was a rational yet binding law of conduct. What is India's answer? It's a dharma. Dharma for the rational yet binding law of conduct. You may accept it, you may throw it away. But India has at least offered what science could not provide. Now let me summarize. So, why we need, what is the relevance, contemporary relevance and universal relevance of Indian knowledge system? Let me summarize and conclude. So why we need Indian knowledge system? So we want to reconnect. This is the first relevance. We want to reconnect. Whom we want to reconnect? We want to reconnect our intellectual elite. Educated elites. So reconnecting intellectual elite with the roots who are alienated culturally. What would be the process? By removing hypnotism of European culture. Because right now we are hypnotized by the glamour of European culture. By removing the overwhelmingness with the victors. By removing our inferiority. By removing our apathy to Indian culture. By removing the attitude of self-repudiation. By removing the attitude of wholesale imitation. So this is the relevance. We want to reconnect our educated Indians, our intellectual elites with the roots of Indian culture who are already alienated culturally. By removing hypnotism of European culture, overwhelmingness with the victors, by removing inferiority, by removing apathy, by removing self-repudiation, and by removing wholesale imitation of West. And by eradicating, this is second process, by eradicating the root causes of our downfall. This is the inferiority was another cause of our downfall. And why? Why we want to remove all these difficulties? For reawakening to Indian knowledge. We want to reawaken you to Indian knowledge. For the triumph of India's nationalism. For reasserting Indian values. For our own very survival. For our own survival, as well as solving the problems that perplex the world. That is the universal relevance. Because এতিয়ালৈকে বিজ্ঞানে মানৱ জাতিৰ কোনো সমস্যাৰ সমাধান কৰিব পৰা নাই। ভাৰতীয় জ্ঞান পৰম্পৰাই দাবী কৰিছে যে we can solve each and every human problem. But the condition is yoga has to be realized and understood in its proper sense, not as a therapeutic science, not as a gymnasium. You can be a yogi even without resorting to asana and pranayama. Through Gyan Yoga, you can be a yogi. And yoga is an inward process which nobody can see on you. So yoga is our answer, a practice of perfection. Brahman, a goal of life. And dharma is the rational yet binding law of conduct. India claims to provide. India claims to offer. You may accept it. You may not accept it, but I am sure, I am confident. When you will be undergoing deep study of Indian knowledge, you will yourself have the answers that India has really the capacity. With this word, let me conclude here. If you want to interact, we can interact for a few minutes. Thank you and namaskar to all.